All right, we're now recording. Hello, Zach. And let me begin by asking you, how many of, or if any, of my typing session videos have you watched before?
I've seen a lot of them.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
All right. So, can you do the normal SI test that I give at the beginning of these things, which asks the person to repeat for me the succession of events from the last couple of hours?
sure. Well, for the last couple hours, I'll just start at the beginning of my day because I didn't really do anything for the last couple hours. But I woke up. Then I woke up at like 12 something. Um, and I was still like really tired, which is weird because I got a lot more sleep than yesterday. But I was still like pretty tired, and then I like brushed my teeth and whatever. Then I did like a screening thing for like COVID because I'm gonna get like tested. I did that, and then I ate some cereal while I was watching a video, and then
So, what about yesterday made you tired?
oh, because I went to sleep like at 6 in the morning, and then I woke up at like 2, which
Okay.
which I really don't. Yeah, and then I went to sleep earlier last night, and I woke up slightly earlier, but I still got more hours of sleep, but I was like still tired. So,
Let's see. What was the compelling thing that made you stay up all night?
um, I was playing like video games.
Okay. Uh, is this a regular pattern of uh, staying awake for little stretches of time and then trying to catch up and then staying awake and then trying to catch up? Or are you normally pretty regular on sleep patterns?
I'd say that it's irregular across like, or it's basically like during certain periods of the year, maybe like during the summer, I'll tend to go to sleep like pretty late, maybe from like 2 to 5. But then when it gets to like I guess school, like the yeah like school year, I'll go to sleep like slightly earlier, but it's still not consistent. Like I'll go to sleep at like 2 in the morning every day. It's usually just like well after midnight, and then I kind of just wake up like
Okay.
my body's gotten used to waking up like at the same time. um
So,
and
so
I
what's your perspective on sleep from a normative perspective, like, or a prescriptive perspective? In other words, do you think, are you wagging your finger at yourself like I really should get more sleep, or are you saying you're doing it properly like this, or something else?
it's more so like as long as I feel like well rested for the next day. I don't really mind sort of like when I go to sleep, but I like there's a thing in me kind of to like want to go to sleep slightly earlier so that I can wake up earlier, just because like usually, like I need to do stuff like more towards the morning, like, and things close later. So it's more for like, oh, if something needs to like like if I need to get something done, like I'll just maybe kind of get into the habit of going to sleep a little late, or a little uh, earlier, so that I can wake up slightly earlier, just so my body doesn't, you know, kind of like break down if I have to wake up earlier someday, and then if I usually wake up at like 2 p.m., then I'm like dead. So yeah, but I still go to sleep like pretty late and wake up
Okay.
not super early.
Um. So there's a question I want to ask you that I want to reference in email because somebody suggested it. I thought it was a good question. So let me check this email and then I'll ask you this question. Okay. Here's a question. You go to see a counselor because you've determined that you have various dysfunctions and pathologies which are preventing you from living the rich and rewarding life you'd like to have. You explain in great detail all the ways in which you are feeling defeated and coming up short. The counselor gives you two options. One, he can perfectly explain all the origins and reasons for all the maladies you're currently ailing from and the psychology behind them. Or two, he can give you a list of habits or behaviors that, should you incorporate them into your life, will help you overcome practically the issues you are having. You can only pick one, not both. The question is, which one is more appealing to you, or which one do you pick?
Mm. I guess I guess I would pick the second one just to because like I feel like then the second one would be like, oh, these are actual things that I can do to sort of improve my lifestyle. Whereas the first one, it's kind of just like I can't really do anything with that. Like it's definitely good to know sort of where it comes from and like why that's a thing, but I just feel like that's something that I can look up on my own. And I guess yeah, if I have like stuff to do, it's more concrete. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Um, so, uh, so I'm going to interpret that as being like, so this is recommended to me as a TITE question, basically. That,
Mm,
and what you're saying is you pref the TE approach because you figure you could do the TI approach on your own. I would think that'd be consistent with most would be more consistent with a TI user than a TE user probably, but it's hard to
mm.
say. Depends where it is in the stack, I guess. So, okay, so have you you're familiar with the remote associations test?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to read you a couple questions from that. How do you normally do on those? Have you tried yourself on them before?
Yeah, I do like fairly okay, not like terribly, but not like I get all of them right either. It's kind of just like okay, I guess.
Yeah. All right. How about light birthday stick?
Candle,
Yeah. How about wheel hand shopping?
cart,
Okay. How about right cat carbon?
copy,
Okay. How about cross rain tie?
check.
Bow.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you're doing well on them because I'm giving you hard ones in general. Pine crab sauce.
Pine crab sauce. Um, I'm
Oh,
thinking of like several words, but I don't think any of them are it.
it took me a second, but yeah.
Like thinking of like needle or like meat or like
It's apple.
um.
Pineapple, crab apple, and applesauce.
Okay.
All right, let me give you one or two very hard ones. Pet bottom garden.
Bottom, pet bottom garden. Mm, I don't know.
I think it's rock.
Oh,
Pet rock. Yeah. How about overplant horse? Overplant plant, horse.
It's not cross. It's not shoe. Um, war, no. Pen.
Huh.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Clothes? Clothes is the only thing I could think of. Power. Overpower, power plant, and horsepower.
Okay.
That's a tricky one.
Yeah.
Alright, cool. So you're pretty good at those. You're about as good as I am at them, I'd say, which is pretty good at them. Have you seen me do Inky Pinky test before?
I yeah, like once or twice, I
Okay, it's
think.
the example I always give is I give a clue like hilltop water spout, and the answer is mountain fountain. And I'd say hilltop water spout, inky panky, because mountain fountain is inky panky, two syllable, and it rhymes. So the answer always rhymes, and the clue will tell you what the meanings are basically, and the syllables tell you how many syllables it is.
Okay.
So, um, if I were to say a spousal stabber and it's the ink pink, what would the answer be? A spouse stabber.
Is it spousal stabber or spouse stabber?
Spouse. Spouse. Either way.
Um, and it has to rhyme with spouse stabber,
Well,
or
yeah, the answer means spouse stabber, and um, it's one syllable each word is the answer,
mhm.
and they rhyme.
Okay. Um, house ladder. Wait.
It's a wife knife.
Okay.
Okay. Do you get the concept of it a little bit more clearly? Try.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Here's another example. If I were to say roadway flesh and it's an ink pink, the answer is street meat.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, okay, for sure.
All right. So let's try. Uh, um, okay. Uh, uh, the captain of a fish's directional organ, and it's a inky pinky.
The captain fishes.
Directional organ, and it's an inky pinky. So what's a fish's directional organ?
Or fins.
Fin, right? So, um, fish's directional organ. Uh, okay, well, fin is one, but what's another one that could? What's another word that could mean a fish's directional organ?
Um,
It's got to be two syllables.
like rudder, but
It's flipper.
oh, flipper. Okay.
It's a flipper skipper.
Hmm.
Okay. Now I want to see if you can make up one of those. Can you make up one and give me a clue and test me on one of these? This is part of figuring out how you ID it as well. want to go outside, kitty?
Can I kind of make like a derivative of the word, even if it's not an actual word, but it still rhymes with each other?
Sure.
Okay. Um, fuck. You ask someone, how do you, okay. Oh, fuck, it has to be like a phrase. Someone, okay. Wait. Oh, shit. No, yeah, okay. Someone, or I guess Prison Break, Inky Pinky.
Okay.
Probably a pretty shitty one, but
Prison Break is the clue, and it's an Inky Pinky.
yeah. I can
Um,
come up with a better clue.
let's see. Um, Slammer Jammer. Uh,
Actually, I think Prison Break is a bad hint. Maybe Prison Outage. But
okay. Um,
oh,
hmm. Jail block failed something. I don't know. What's the answer?
it's it's Jaily Bailey. So like jail bail, but then I just added a Y, which I could have just said ink pink. But yeah,
Jail
it was
bail. Oh,
yeah.
okay. Jail bail makes sense.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Fine. So, let's see about let's do a value comparison thing. Uh, what do you think you self 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 assess to value more? Uh, Universal truths or authentic resonance with personal feelings?
The second one.
Okay. What do you think you value more? Universal truths or being socially graceful?
Probably Universal Truths.
Okay. What do you value more? Novelty or impact?
Hmm. Hmm. I feel like it. I feel like it maybe depends on the situation, but I guess you're asking like if I really had to choose between two, like, and they're both in conflict, like which one?
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, are you more moved by something that has a lot of impact? You go like, wow, that was a big explosion. Or something that
Oh,
you've never seen before. Like, wow, I've never seen that before. Even though it's a weird, just a weird looking bug, it doesn't have a lot of impact. But
okay. Probably a novelty then in that scenario.
okay, um, what do you think you prioritize or prefer as a value? Fairness or efficacy when they conflict? Like we just got to get this shit done. Yeah, it's a little bit unfair to those people, but whatever. At least it'll be accomplished, and that's better than sitting around and squabbling about it forever. Or no, everything's got to be consistent and it needs to make sense and be just. Otherwise, we shouldn't do it. And you're doing something that's unjust and that's bad.
I feel like when I'm actually in that situation, like I like not that I wouldn't care about sort of the social dynamic of it, but like I feel like I am more so like oh just sort of get it done because this is a task and it's not necessarily related to the person. It's just sort of like a thing you're doing. I don't know.
Okay. Um, what do you feel like you prioritize between what's more comfortable for you? Some some statement that makes a lot of sense about the world, or the way you've experienced a given thing. Let's say you've gone to play soccer with these people, this group of people before, and it's always been boring because all they do is kick the ball back and forth across the midfield and never try to advance on anybody's goal. And the NI truth is that this time, however, a very aggressive offensive player is going to come join on each side of the squad. And so that should change the dynamics of the game. Now, do you trust your instincts that every time you've gone to play there before, it's been a shitty experience, or do you trust your NI observation that it'll be different this time because they've invited Renario and Othario, two uh, famously aggressive soccer players?
I don't know if this will make sense, but like I feel like my personal experiences inform like my truth. So it's like if I've gone through it and I see that it's sort of that's how it is, it sort of like confirms the truth rather than like it happening randomly.
Okay. So,
I don't know.
do you think a truth in general is created or discovered?
I look, you kind of think both, because like I feel like for discovered, it's kind of like um I don't know, kind of when you're just like chilling and then like something hits you, it's like, oh shit, that's kind of what I've been looking for this whole time. Like at the same time, like you can also like when you're sort of coming up with shit, you realize the truths. But I don't know if that's just another way of saying like discovered, but yeah.
Right. Okay. Um, when you want to express yourself, your truest emotional self, let's say, which medium do you think is most best way to do that? Is it dancing, writing, singing a song, writing a song, putting on a play, uh, or or something else?
Singing and dancing.
Singing and dancing. Okay. Um, do you think that artistic expression is most honestly realized when it's a live performance, or most honestly realized when it's a crafted, carefully crafted media product?
That's such a sort of like sort of murky like water chart for me because like I think that both of them can be super like authentic, but I feel like the most like sort of genuineness that can come out of a person's performance or whatever it is when it's sort of live and it's there and it's raw because they're not sort of like altering it with anything else.
Which sentence are you more likely to either say or agree with? Sentence one is talk is cheap, your actions are what matters. And sentence two is I have to know that we're on the same page regarding what things mean and the words we use.
Definitely the second one.
Okay. Um, do you think that artistic expression is more an expression of your feelings or your intuition?
I would look you'd say both, but I feel like the feelings aspect is sort of more immediate.
Okay. Are you, everybody to a certain extent is likely to start projects they don't finish. That's true for just about every type except maybe like ENTJs and ESTJs. I don't know.
Mhm.
Maybe ISTJs too. Who knows? But, um, so the question I want to ask is are you likely to have a single core key project or two that you keep returning to and hoping to eventually get done? Or do you have a lot of stubs of beginnings of projects, none of which you've been able to get very far into?
The second one for sure.
Okay. Um, and how do you relate to those stubs as an object of analysis? In other words, how do you treat your unfinished ideational starters?
I just treat them as like a sort of a manifestation of how I was sort of feeling or whatever I was creating like in the moment. Like that's what I was doing then. And usually I don't actually ever really return to the sort of things that I started because I feel like they don't really like resonate that much anymore. Um, if not, I'll have finished it. So I like there's no point for me to even go back to it. But if I leave it, it means that I probably got bored with it.
Okay, so talk to me about your relationship with things that you finish. Is there a window of time like I'm either going to get it done in 3 days, or I'm not going to get it done at all? Or does it work like it's unpredictable, such as I work on it for a bit and then I put it aside and I don't really know for a while if I'm going to come back to it or not, and then eventually I just determine that I'm not going to, or I finish it, one of the two.
I think for that it would probably be more if I'm doing something and I'm super into it, like I'll just do it in like one sitting and like just finish it there if I'm like super like invested. But
But what if you're super invested but you can't finish it in one sitting?
um, I'll just pick it up later. Although like that usually doesn't happen, so I don't really know what I would say in that case. But I mean, if I am that invested, like I feel like I would sort of like pick back up or like continue it like at a later date. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to present you with two different arguments, and I'm going to ask you which one is better and why. Okay?
Okay.
So, argument number one is we should invade Canada because we'd be well served to have a lot more land and have the population of this country combined with Canada's population have a much like less dense population density in concentrated areas than it currently has. It would open up the opportunity for people to homestead and so forth. Because that's argument number one, the Canada argument. Argument number two is um, Britain should return to the EU, casting aside its Brexit, because there's on balance negative economic impacts for uh, Britain due to um, due to the fact that people in Europe don't like buying British products because they know that British products aren't EU but British.
I would go with the first one, um, cause or you said to have like greater like I guess land was that one of the
Yeah, lower
yeah.
population density, I guess.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I would go with that one. Cause like, well, if okay, so you're saying if sorry, I like forgot like the
Okay,
specific
so
detail.
in the first argument, the warrant is we should invade Canada because it will allow the United States population to spread out broadly, and lower population density correlates with a lot of positive outcomes economically, quality of life, and
Mhm,
stuff like
okay,
that.
for
Okay,
sure.
and the second argument is Britain ought to return to the EU because they're incurring economic harms from the fact that people on the European continent don't want to buy British products anymore because they know the British products aren't part of the EU.
Yeah, to me the second one seems kind of like meaningless because like that kind of just seems like a preference for like Britain to not want to like purchase those types of products. But I guess for the first one, it's like better for like I guess like long term sort of plans for the U.S. to sort of plan its future like in a better way. And
Okay, so I mean,
um,
do you think that if we had to pick one of the advocacies, that we should therefore do the first one and not the second, or do the second and not the first, assuming you can't do both or don't want to do both, and you can't do neither?
could you
So,
could you
so
repeat
does
that
that
again?
mean you prefer to do the advocacy suggested by the better argument,
Oh,
or do you
um,
prefer to do the advocacy suggested by the worse argument?
I mean, I guess I prefer to do the advocacy of the better argument, but
All right.
are you saying that the better argument is the like the Britain one and the worse
No, no,
argument?
you're saying the better argument is the we should invade Canada because meow 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 meow. So what I'm saying is, since it's the better argument, does that mean that it is the case that we should invade Canada? If we have to choose between invading Canada and Britain continuing Brexit, then we should invade Canada.
Sorry, I
It,
like zoned out like the last
if we have to choose between going with the better argument and invading Canada, or going with the worse argument and letting Britain stay with Brexit, which thing should we do? We've
I
already.
would I would still go with the first one.
You're gonna invade Canada. Okay.
Sure, I don't know.
Okay.
I guess.
All right. So let me ask you now some TI questions. I'll start with some genealogy ones.
Okay.
Can you tell me my mother's father's wife's only son-in-law's relationship to me?
Um,
My
how would
mother's father's wife's only son-in-law relationship to me. My
is it
mother's father's wife's only son-in-law.
is it like great uncle?
No, it's my dad.
Okay.
Okay. Um, Let me ask you a different kind. If all birds have feathers and an ostrich has feathers, can we conclude necessarily that an ostrich is a bird?
I would say no, like instinctively, but I feel like I've heard your questions, and I feel like the answer is yes.
No, it's no.
Oh, it is no. Okay, okay,
There are various permutations of them. So,
okay.
if only frogs leap and Jody is a frog, can we conclude that she is leaping or that she leaps?
Can we conclude that what?
Only frogs leap. Jody is a frog. Can we conclude that she leaps?
No.
No. Correct.
Okay.
All right. So, do you consider yourself by colloquial understandings of the word, meaning like by the way people who don't know anything about typology, by the way those people use the words extroverted and introverted? Would Do you think people who know you would describe you as extroverted or introverted?
Um, I think more introverted, possibly,
Okay.
probably, I guess.
Do you have political opinions or are you apolitical?
No, I don't really like to engage with like politics and whatever.
Okay. And do you pay attention to any sports? Like you're a fan of Team Yeah or Team Yeah?
No.
No. Okay. Um, did you play any sports either when you're younger or currently?
Um, I mean, I did t-ball for like a season when I was like 3, and then I did like gymnastics for like 3-ish years when I was younger, and I dance in college. So
T-ball though.
yeah,
That's the defining sport right there. That's defined
right?
you for the rest of your life is the 1 year of T-ball you did when you were 3 years old.
Yeah,
I don't know if I did. I don't think I did T-ball. My parents put me in soccer instead. I was terrible at it. Um,
yeah.
were you generally uh, you're so you feel as though you've got, for example, good control over your body if you're dancing, right?
Actually, no. Like at first, like I had pretty bad like body awareness, but like as I've sort of practiced more, like it's definitely gotten better. But it's not something that I just naturally am like, oh, I know sort of like coordination stuff. I'm like not
Can you
your
describe body awareness to me? What do you mean by that?
so like I guess specifically in dance, it's more so when you're learning a piece taught by like a choreographer, you know you're they move and they show you the move, and like some people genuinely don't understand how to position their bodies to sort of execute like a certain move, and that's something that takes like a lot of like understanding of like how your body works.
So
So
if the dance move is like first you go like this and then you go like this, but
yeah,
some people will go like this and like this or something.
yeah, or some people may not understand that like your arm needs to be fully out, so I guess they'll kind of like keep it in and then randomly shoot it up because they're like, oh, it's going up, but like I can't tell that it's like a straight angle going up from here.
I see. So did you consciously pay attention to that stuff and sort of figure out how to attend to that more effectively?
Yeah, like I had to like look in mirrors to see where I was and like rewatch videos of myself, which like a lot of dancers do, but yeah, that was something I struggled with a lot.
Okay. Do you have a preferred style of dance?
Yeah. It's like more chill, smooth, like R&B. Um I also like upbeat, sort of like hype, like hip hop music, but I like express myself better when the song is like slower paced and there's more like intricate beats and like or just like basses that I can like groove more to. Yeah.
Have you considered maybe inventing a form of dance that combines tap, ballet, and breakdancing?
Have I thought of that specifically? No.
I think that'd be a good idea. You could call it.
I oh sorry, go.
You could call it br- break a tap or something.
Break my tap.
Break
I don't know.
break a tap
Break
or ballet break tap. That sounds like a good name. Ballet break tap,
like
right?
break tap. Yeah. It honestly sounds like a thing. Yeah, but like in dance, like people create like any. I mean, like when you freestyle, it's basically like you're creating like your own style because you're basically combining like everything you've done. So I feel like I've kind of done random shit, but yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so how likely are you to feel like you're going to successfully express your feelings with writing?
I I don't when I'm writing, I don't actually because like when I'm writing, it's more. Do you mean like essays or like poetry? Like
Like,
what?
if you're, do you ever feel as though I want to express myself right now with
Oh,
words, like by writing a poem, writing a short story, writing in your diary, dear diary. Today, Thomas was such an asshole. He kicked me in the shins like 3 times when we were dancing. I kept telling him, no, right foot, right foot. And he kept using his left foot, and I just like, bam, right in my shins. I was like, fuck
mhm.
you, Thomas. You learn these steps, you get off the stage. Thanks for being so patient, diary.
Yeah. I don't usually write like that. Because like when I do write, it's more so I guess for like school. And I usually don't like I know my stance on certain things, like if it's like an argumentative thing, but um I'll sort of detach or like I won't even like write it in like a feelings based way because like it's a paper for like school.
Can you give
But
me an example of a stance you've ever taken a paper in school and how you approached it in your thinking?
I'll just go with the last paper I wrote. It was it's for a metaphysics class. And we were writing about Aristotle and his categories and dualism and like mentalism and those types of concepts. And my and like okay, this is when I'm writing like papers is that like I don't really know my thesis or like my position right when I'm like starting the paper, and it's sort of a thing where like as I go I'm like, oh, this is kind of what I mean as I'm forming my thoughts. But like when I look back, like there isn't a ton of like argumentation necessarily, and it's sort of like I feel like I'm just giving examples of like why I think it's true, but like I don't necessarily know if my arguments are actually like correct or not. But like the argument that I gave, it was kind of like um do our concepts like physicalism and like mentalism are like insufficient and like sort of describing like the nature of existence because they're basically because like they're like asserting their own position as like total
They're
truth like
they're
as like the
totalizing a function bias.
yeah
That's really what they're
so
doing. They're totalizing a function bias. Certain kind of philosophers take their own functions and they say, now,
right
if
yeah
everybody would just affirm according to my
exactly.
criteria, my cognitive functions, usually TI
Yeah,
demand, then we'd all be fine. You know.
exactly. Yeah. So like I just like took like the approach of like, oh, I think dualism is a better way of like I guess understanding like reality. But then like in my class like we kind of spoke about it, and the professor said, oh well, dualism still like takes like sort of the assumption that like um it has a physical origin, and then the mental is sort of predicated upon like the physical, and I'm like, well, that's still not explaining all of reality because like it's sort of both like
why,
sides
why,
that
why
yeah.
can't there be a map in a territory? That's a simple question you ask, right? You know, what? Explain to me
Right,
exactly why there can't be a map in a territory.
right, like
And
there has to be both
why are you
'cause-
trying to get rid of one of those entirely?
yeah. And like I understand why people take certain positions because like it makes sense like in that worldview, and it's not wrong, it's just not whole or like total. Like one of the examples that I gave, I like gave an analogy, and I don't know if this was like a, a good analogy, but like it was basically if you have a penny, right? And the head side is like Abraham Lincoln and the tail side is like the like structure, right? A person arguing from the side from the head side is what was it? It was like you can't make it, or like if you argue, or like if wait, what was it? Shit. It was like really interestingly crafted, and I was kind of like surprised. I was like, oh shit, that like kind of makes sense. But it was basically like if you're arguing from one side because you can only see that side and assume that that's sort of the whole fuck, what was it? It was like so interestingly like phrased. I could like read it if I like pull it up, but I don't know if like we have time for that. But
Well, I was going to ask Rachel
yeah.
if she wouldn't mind helping me for a second. Rachel, would you mind helping me for a second?
Oh,
Could you bring your headphones over here and
there's a
plug in?
skunk outside.
Oh, there's a skunk
Yeah.
outside.
No wonder Pee-Pee was like so like staring at
Well,
the.
hopefully, Pee Doesn't get up on the skunk.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that too.
We've got some wildlife.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got you down to I think two possible types that, frankly, generally aren't very difficult to tell apart. I'm leaning towards one of them, but I want to, without even saying what I think you might be, I want to get Rachel in and listen to you for a bit. And
Okay.
if you have any specific questions, Rachel, go ahead and ask them. If not, I'll ask some random questions and you can just listen to the responses.
Yeah, I think that's best. The second
Okay.
way, yeah.
So, can you talk about your relationship with social interactions, either one on one, a group of three, or a larger group? Like, which do you
Um,
prefer, and how they make you feel in general? What your thoughts are if you're invited to a party, that kind of general thing.
um, yeah, I guess like his slight backstory ish. Whatever, I was like awkward and like whatever, like throughout like school, and then like 10th grade hit, and I kind of got like gained like a little more friends and whatever. And then like once I came to college, I was like, you know what, I want to like get like I want to have friends, right? And so I like went to like a lot of parties and whatever, and I was like, oh, like this is super cool. Um, but like it's still not super, I guess, straightforward for me to, or like more so like before like quarantine, it wasn't as straightforward for me to like how to like interact with people. And
How do people interact with you? I mean, if you were to try to accurately and objectively describe other people's reaction to you, do they find you likable in general? Are they drawn to you? Do they interact with you easily? Or do you find them not drawn to you, or not not in general positive? Do you make a good first impression?
um, I think I make like an okay like first impression, but answering like the first question, I would say that people are like decently like drawn to me based on like when I do like meet up with people over like several like occasions, and when people like ask me to like hang out, um I'd say that I have like a decent standing within like my social groups. But it just sort of takes a lot of like it's like, oh, like how do I like act around people, or like is there something I'm supposed to say? But I'm kind of distancing myself from that because like now it's kind of like, well, I know that it's more because like everyone to some degree, I feel like has that of like, oh no, like social like interactions, and it's kind of like, well, if you just kind of bring yourself to the table and like be yourself, like that's kind of what helps, rather than like let me just be like everyone else and sort of interact how
Okay.
everyone else wants. I don't know.
What kind of questions do you think I should ask? Anything in mind?
How did the TI go?
Um, Probably not polar, but maybe fourth, maybe eighth. Uh, you know,
Fourth or eighth would make it what?
so eighth would be um, FI down, which is where I'm leaning.
So it's where I was leaning to.
So with the thing that's odd is I have a hard time distinguishing between which FI dom he is. I'm leaning ISFP, but you're more chatty than most. You got more to say. You're
Nice.
I'm not sure I think you're probably an ISFP, but you could be an INFP.
What is what is your line of work?
He's a student. He's a dancing student.
Are you a dancing student?
Yeah.
And that's what you want to do for a career?
Or I do film, or like I'm a film major, but like I don't necessarily want to do something in film because um, I'm not necessarily like the most passionate, but like I'm probably like also like I also want to like create stuff like on the side, um, whether it
So,
be like with music and whatever.
okay, so are you passionate enough with dance to do it in the future after school?
Honestly, like wherever it sort of takes me, because it is something that I am like very passionate about, but sort of making it like in the dance industry is like kind of hard. So there's
Would you
that.
describe yourself more as the next Baryshnikov or the next Gregory Hines?
I don't know who either of those are.
Those are famous dancers. It's the only famous dancers I can think of, except for Paula Abdul.
I only know like more recent sort of dancers that are in the California sort of dance community.
Or Fred
So
Astaire. I could think of Fred Astaire. Do you ever do those kind of dances?
no, I don't know who it is.
You
I
don't
don't
know who
know.
Fred Astaire is? Come on.
No.
He's only the most famous
Wow.
dancer of all time.
Maybe I've like seen his stuff, but I don't know like his name with his dances.
I don't think you
You're
have to.
missing
If you
out.
didn't know the name, you won't know his stuff.
He's a real
Yeah.
swell
I
dancer.
don't know.
Yeah.
You
Maybe.
He's,
gotta check him out. He's like history's famousest
mm-hmm.
dancer.
He is.
I think you're an ISFP. What do you think, Rachel?
I don't
You
know.
think might be an INFP?
Yeah.
What do you think you are, Zach?
I actually like came in with like a lot of different types because like I was also I was also typed by OP, and I also like sort of ruminated like on my own like, oh, I kind of seem like this type because like certain things about like a lot of types ring true, and then it's sort of like, well, which one is like dominant? But um ISFP was like in there in the mix. The most like, I guess, ones that I was like really leaning, or the like that I thought were it, was either like something along the lines of like INFP or like ENFP. And before it was like INFJ, just because like I was like, oh, that kind of like a lot of things sort of like resonated. And I don't, yeah,
Yeah, you gotta
I don't
watch
know.
those type descriptions. They're a
Yeah,
little wacky. Um,
yeah,
so you thought INFP or ENFP? INFP is possible. You're not an ENFP. Um,
yeah, yeah.
and uh, ISFP is also possible. Probably,
Yeah.
I would. It's like I'm more split about you than I have been about anybody in a long time. I really feel
Mhm.
like half the evidence is pointing to ISFP and half the evidence is pointing to INFP.
Yeah.
There's a lot about you that says ISFP, but um, my NI says this experience is more like dealing with an INFP. I feel somewhat supervised, and also the conversation is paced differently than
Mm,
it typically is with an ISFP. But that could be because I'm kind of added up, so I don't know about that. I could be
okay.
a little bit
Yeah,
skewed in my thinking because of that.
yeah.
Um, I mean, the preponderance of the evidence overall falls on the side of ISFP
Yeah.
by the following reasonings. Um, the the description of how you express yourself is much more consistent with ISFP than INFP, and the your explanation of your relationship with schoolwork is more consistent with fourth slot TE and eighth slot TI, um, which is I guess that's the same for both of them. But it would seem to be more consistent with ISFP approach than INFP approach, which is more likely to talk through pretty readily and without hesitation all the different ideational aspects of things. Um, the You take a very deliberative approach, which is to be expected because you're a deliberation type with an FI down regardless. But I guess INFPs typically talk out the deliberative process more. Um,
Mm,
I would also say
Yeah.
uh, that your description of your relationship with SI sounds a little bit more like that of an ISFP than that of an INFP, and you seem to be uh, more prone to going, doing things, getting out, and such, at least before COVID, than would an INFP. So
mm,
those are the reasons I would say, by and large, preponderance evidence makes me suggest I'm going to type you as ISFP, but only at about 75%.
okay.
You could be an INFP. That's kind of like
I have a story of um hello.
Hello.
I have a story that kind of it's like a good example of polar SE. Um I was having a rough time with my family, and my INFP friend wanted to do something nice for me, and she loves the city, so she was like, okay, let's go to Brooklyn, and we're going to have some kimchi at this kimchi place. So I was like, okay, great. Um, we get to we get to Brooklyn, and we realize that we are like 25 blocks away from the place that we need to be. And it's freezing cold, and she didn't, like, she didn't, she hadn't been to the place before. It was like new to her, just as it was new to me. And we get there, and it wasn't the kind of kimchi that she thought we were gonna get. And have you ever had any plans like that with your friends or family, where it was just a really nice idea, but kind of fell apart in action?
It completely failed to take into account follow through. You know.
Um, I don't think so. I don't. I mean, we honestly didn't really do that.
Okay, well, here's the thing. Here's the thing I get from INFPs all the time, and that I haven't really gotten from you. Maybe I gotten a little bit of it from you, but a lot of questions we'll ask an INFP, they'll typically answer, "It depends," or
Mm,
request more and more information about it until they give me answers. And the reason is they've got extroverted intuition as a tool function.
mm,
So if I say like, when they conflict, which do you prioritize, truth um, or justice? Let's say.
yeah,
Um, they'll say, well, it depends. I say, well, when they conflict, which do you prioritize? I say,
yeah,
well, it still depends. I say, well, on what? Well,
yeah,
I have to see what the actual particulars of the situation are. And
right,
then they'll, if I ask them, well, why? They'll give me, because it could be this, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this, it could be
right.
this, and then I would have to be yeah, and then yeah, and they're much more likely to approach questions in that fashion.
Could I say something about
Of
that?
course, sure.
I think for that, like the whole like sort of it depends like approach to like questions is like something that I used to do, but like sort of as I'm got like approaching like social like interactions more, I'm also trying to not be so like indecisive about things because like I know that people want like a certain answer and it's kind of like, well, I'll just and like
Okay,
another
well let me do an any test, a direct any test. Okay, so we've already done one of them, which was Inky Pinky, and you tested consistent with any polar. Now here's another one. Can you, I've come up with a new invention. It's a bong that has a blood pressure meter checker thing on it attached to it, and I think it's a great new invention. I think it's going to sell a lot because people can smoke bong rips while they're checking their blood pressure. But I can't think of any good names for it. Can you help me come up with multiple good, snappy names to help me sell this product?
I guess like bongo meter or like um sm Smokostat is bad. Like blood boil or like blood boiler. B&B for like bong and blood or some shit. I don't know.
Okay.
Um,
So this is what any dominant would do with this. They'd say, well, you've got the pump and puff because you can pump the thing. You've got the dystolic discharger that you've got your high pressure with the high in extra big capital letters. You've got your smoke on the blood pressure meter, which is a reference to the Deep Purple song. You've got burn turn, and then in parentheses, over a new leaf with this exciting blood pressure
Oh.
checker.
Mm.
I don't know. The thing is, it doesn't sound like tool function any to me. We can try another one. Let's say my new invention was a flashlight that also had on it a vacuum cleaner.
Um, I'm thinking of shit, but they're all like shit. So yeah, whatever. I don't know. Sure. Okay.
Okay. I mean, the
Yeah.
thing is, I what my set of data from typing a lot of different people suggests is that you're not any tool function, and you are an FI dom, and that means you're an ISFP.
I believe so too.
That's what I think.
Yeah, I think that any test was pretty
But-
strong.
But I wouldn't blame a typologist for mistyping you as an INFP, because there's a lot of indications that are INFP-like about you. You're interested in intuitive things. You remind me kind of Octavio Silva in that regard. It's incorrect to think that ISFPs are simpletons, which is how they're often portrayed in type descriptions. So remember that type descriptions are something of the devil because they've given the impression of certain types being sexy types and other types being not desirable types.
Right. Yeah.
But those things are absolutely incorrect.
Yeah.
Every type has a unique set of advantages and deficits.
Right. Um, yeah, like coming into it, I was like honestly like any type that I sort of get like I feel like I'll be able to understand like I guess like like through like methodology like it makes sense. I think the only thing for me is that I guess being typed like as a sensor because in OP like I was also typed as a sensor. But for me, and I know this is also like anecdotal, and this doesn't necessarily like correlate to what the actual function is doing. But for me, like the experience of a sensor isn't something that I feel like I'm approaching life with, even though like I can see how that would sort of like relate to me in that like it's kind of like I feel like I'm maybe doing things like more so like in the moment or like there isn't as much I guess like ideation like going on and like that makes sense. But
Well, the thing
I
I remember about ISFPs and ISTPs is they have NI as their third function.
right.
So the two dominant sort of values of a person are their first and their third. So for you, it's authenticity and intuition.
Mm,
Now, it's natural as a consequence, you're going to identify a lot with your third function and think your intuition is pretty damn good. And it is. It's just your introverted intuition is pretty damn good.
mm,
If assigned to come up with the single best name and given time to do so, given time to percolate about it, because NI is not something you force
right.
on cue, right? That's something NE does. NE you can force it on cue. Or at least I can. Dominant or tool function can. Um, NI can't be forced on cue by even if it's in your dominant. You need to give your intuition time to sit with the information. If it's more complicated than simply like uh, which hole does the square go in? That's
Right.
very simple level NI. Well, it goes in the one that looks like a square, not the one that looks like a circle or a triangle. So, but when it gets more complicated, like what's the best product name for this? An ISFP would be just as likely to come up with the best product name, probably as ENTP or even INFJ, because that third slot NI means it's highly valued by them,
Mm,
and they can be quite successfully intuitive as a consequence. In contrast, I'm more likely to, um, mess something up. Even if I get some NI, even if I find the NI truth in a thing, like if I'm making a video, for example, I'll add some extra shit that messes it up unnecessarily. You know,
right.
that's my tendency. So being intuitive in your four letters is not the same thing as using intuition regularly or well in your life.
Right.
And it's a mistake to think of sensors as either simpler or less intelligent or less interested in intuitive matters necessarily, especially if they have intuition, especially introverted intuition, in the third slot.
Right. So, because you talk about like how third slot is like scorecard, and when you achieve something in it, it's like it's sort of like satisfying. How would like introverted like intuition in the third slot like manifest?
Well, for example, when you come to a determination, you're talking about how you start a paper and you're not quite sure what your thesis is at the beginning. But gradually, as you're working it out, you determine, aha, this is the thesis, which is to say, you come upon a central single argument that around which you can build your paper clearly, and that process for you is gratifying on the grounds of you've correctly intuited the best way to execute this paper as a piece of media, because that's where the intuition comes in, is that argumentation is a piece of media as well. And so it's like there are clean arguments and there are dirty arguments. You feel, take satisfaction in finding the single clean one that you want to build your paper around and building a clean example of that thing. You know,
Okay.
you would take pleasure in knowing that you've gotten the dance exactly right more than you've gotten more moves down, right? You
Mhm.
prefer quality over quantity.
Right.
Is basic to NI in the third slot as well. It's also selfish. You don't really want someone else's good idea, singular good idea, or somebody else's vision to be um, predominant. You'd like yourself to be responsible for that. And
Okay.
so that's going to make you. This actually is an insight I've never had before, but that explains why ISFPs tend to be artistic or art types, is because
Mm.
they don't want somebody else's thing. It's your selfish function. I want to be the one who has a singular vision myself. When you're talking about
Yeah.
your uncertainty about film, I would guess that part of the reason is you find it more difficult to find a singular vision regarding film than you do regarding dance. Or perhaps you enjoy not having to have a singular vision in doing the freestyle dancing. That would be another possibility, and I don't know how. I'd have to think about that if
Well,
that were the case.
not to be anecdotal, but I did know a ISFP who was very good at drawing, in particular in painting, and she became head creative artist of the one of these like RMS or something. Uh, no, it wasn't even that. What's that brand? I don't know. It's a really big brand that like a lot of millennials use, and yeah, she's really like got really successful in the art world because she wanted to create her own vision, and she became director of a huge marketing company. So
And I would say that when talking about matters that intuitives are normally associated with, ISFPs are much more likely to link than ISTPs, even though they have NI in the third both places. It's how they apply it. Because ISTPs, they end up being
yeah,
more academically successful,
yeah,
but less artistically successful.
correct.
Makes sense. Um. Hmm.
You're going to need to spend some time feeling your way around this.
Yeah. No, I've like honestly like there have been periods where I've thought that I'm, whether it be like an ENFP, and I've sort of viewed things through that lens, and other times I'm like, oh, like ISFP kind of makes sense because, and then I sort of like live under that, and then like other types. So like it like makes sense. It's kind of just like, well, if I'm operating like under this sort of lens or like framework of like this is how I'm like viewing like reality, like it like definitely like makes sense. I guess like the only thing for me is always a sort of like I never feel like I'm part of like the physical world, and it always feels like it's something that I have to sort of fake my way around, or just sort of like it just doesn't feel like I'm actually like living, and I'm always like in my head. I don't know, but
But here's
I
the
mean,
thing. Here's the thing about stuff like that.
right,
We know how much we feel like we're that way compared against nothing, right? We don't
right,
know what the other person's experience is like. So, um, if you were to compare against the average person or some specific other person's experience, you discover that you were way more in your head than they are, or maybe you discover that you're way less in your head. You know?
yeah, yeah, that's very true. I don't know. It's all like very subjective. I've kind of found as because like I found that like when a lot of people don't like accept their type, it's just like I mean you usually like if you do like I guess have like an introverted function first, it's like harder to see, but it's also very like it really depends on the person if like they sort of can like understand how that could apply to them, even though like most people of that type are different. And then when people say like, oh, but like my brother does this and he's this type, so I'm not that, like isn't a good reason either to say that you're not a type. So like yeah, I like get it. It's just sort of like, oh, like yeah, I don't know, cause like I kind of just did this to like get like a different like perspective. And I don't know, yeah. I think it was like pretty useful sort of seeing how different people like type me, but
Well,
you know,
it's also interesting to talk to hear you wrangling with an NI frame that's not selected by yourself, right? Like we were just talking about NI being selfish. So I'm saying, well, here's an NI frame. And you're like, well, I'm going to have to live by this NI frame. Now, as an SI user, I would go like, well, I don't give a fuck about your NI frame.
mhm,
Because I know I'm just going to experience my life as I experience it, and your words can't control me. My NE will overrun your words and make them irrelevant. And
right,
so I never feel at all constrained by other people's NI frames.
hmm,
Rachel does. Rachel feels constrained by them. Like so, she'll read something
Oh
that
yeah.
on like astrology or something. That's a kind of NI frame where they go, oh well, this quality of you and this quality of your significant other clash, and so you're really not fit to be a couple. And she'll be all like,
Frantic.
I'm worried about this because oh, it's
Yes.
this
yeah,
like.
I was
So
like, is
who
this
the
gonna
fuck cares what they? What about your actual experience of us having a very happy
right,
relationship day in and day out, over and over and over again, hour after hour after hour? All that experience gets tossed out the window in exchange for this NI truth
It
that's completely
does.
bullshit.
I
yeah,
need it. I need it sometimes though. It's a
yeah.
boost. It is a boost to
and
my
I mean, yeah, because like sometimes like it actually does make sense, like hearing those universal truths and like, oh, that actually kind of like resonates, and then you're like, yeah, this plays out in my life. But like, I like also get what like Eric is saying in that like you experience shit for yourself, and everyone's sort of experience is different. But I guess like on a resonance
Mhm.
level, like those like hearing those types of things, like they're like, oh, I mean, like if it sounds so true and it feels so true, like it must be true, and it must be something that I also sort of am going to live
Right,
through
but
some.
like, look, even if you can find some element of truth in the NI thing, you have to ignore the totality of the experiential data.
Yeah.
Like, you got to go. Even though
Right.
we spend all of these hours perfectly happy and loving each other, and this fraction of a second having conflict over this one thing, the fact that that existed at one point will link to her the thing that it's saying, right? And
Yeah.
then they make that NI connection. Go, well, see that is there's a crack, and that crack's gonna turn into
Mm,
a fissure, and pretty soon we're gonna split in two. And I'll be
Yes, the
like,
NI.
oh, yeah, that's not a
Black
crack.
hole.
It was
yeah,
an anomaly, for
It's a
Christ's
black
sake.
yeah.
hole.
It's an anomaly.
I
And
know.
it doesn't
Totally.
feel like an anomaly. Like for me, like any sort of truth that I like, I guess encounter, like I feel sort of like obligated to like, okay, this is an actual like truth of like reality. So it's like, let me see how this plays out like in my life. And then it's 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 like funny how that does play out because then it's like I sort of do live through that. But then it's like once another truth comes up, it's like, okay, let me go back to like that like introverted intuition to see like what else is there. And then the cycle sort of like repeats itself. And it's like, shit, I'm just like finding like a lot of truths. And yeah.
Well, in some sense, the strongest application of NI that's not INTJ is ISFP because it's an absolute value. So the thing that 1 and 3 share in common is, and they've got, they can appear similar because they're both absolute values that are very important to the person, and so as a consequence, they tend to attain outcomes with that third slot thing because that's where they get their rewards. So like, I try to have good FE, right? But
Right.
the thing is, you've got um, because you're clearly FI and not FE, and that's the thing that makes it kind of crit. Because as a consequence, you have INTJ or ENTJ, who's less intuitive with their NI really than ISFP about artistic stuff anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's true for both INTJ and ENTJ. So it's like you're the most aesthetically intuitive
Mhm. Right.
NI-FI using type.
Right.
Among the NI-FI types, of which there are uh, 8, right? ENTJs and SFPs uh, and the who else? Or are there 4 NI-FI? Yeah, there's only 4 NI-FI types. Types that are both NI and FI. That's a quadra right there. So yeah, it's like that's what makes me confident that you're an ISFP because you could say, well, I've got very strong NI and maybe I'm an INFJ, but it seems pretty clear to me that you're FI, not FE.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
FI for sure. I see as well. And
Um,
I just I see a lot of ISFPs who go the artistic route, and they'll do like one form of art for a while, and then they'll find this other part of that art and like do that for a while, and maybe like
mm,
be more of the controller of it. Like they like to have the vision. Like Fred Astaire, the ISFP dancer, he created a dancing school. Like Brad Pitt, who is an ISFP, he
Here's another famous
he
ISFP right behind
yeah,
Rachel.
behind us.
oh.
My cat's
She
an
is. She's an
ISFP.
ISFP for
Oh.
sure.
She's a
Yeah.
very
So
important kitty
and
friend too.
so he like went on to do his own production company. So it's like you take your artistic vision and it's yours. Like
Mm,
you want to make an effect on everyone else as well. You hope they have the same experience that you did.
All right, so any
So if that
last questions
resonates.
before we wrap this up?
um, probably after I leave, I'll just be flooded with like a lot of questions. But yeah, as of now, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, I will upload this to Google Drive and share it with you, and then you can make a determination if you want to let me publish it or not.
Okay, for sure.
All right, cool. So I'll share it with you. Can you email me your just so I have your email address so I know who to share it to? Or yeah,
Oh,
stop your recording now.